guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, a really big welcome. My name's Jenny and I create mainly lifestyle content on this channel, which pretty much means I make videos about everything and anything. Topics that I kind of tend to cover are things like disability, chronic illness, mental health, a bit of Disney, a bit of fashion, beauty, travel when we can do that kind of thing, and pretty much everything in between. So hopefully there'll be something here that you'll enjoy, and I hope you'll stick around to watch this video. So for today's video, it is a bit of a niche topic, I guess, but I'm hoping that it will help people who maybe don't have ME to understand a little bit more about the whole process and the illness. But basically I wanted to make a video talking about the new draft NICE guidelines for ME. If you aren't somebody that has ME, or that you haven't kind of followed this news, basically NICE have released some new draft guidelines about kind of the treatment and approaches that doctors should be taking to treating and approaching ME. And yeah, there's a lot of content in them and they seem quite positive. Most people with ME have been kind of giving them, you know, praise for certain things, but there may also be things that aren't quite so good. And I just wanted to make a little video basically to talk a little bit about ME, my experiences of it, what treatment and the approach has been up until now, and then kind of look a little bit at the guidance and kind of analyse it a little bit and just have a little chat about it. So I hope you'll find this interesting. I hope you'll find it helpful if you perhaps haven't been able to read the guidance or anything about it yet. And I'm going to get started because there's a lot to go into, and I'm going to try and make it as succinct as possible. So for anybody that hasn't been following me or hasn't heard my kind of illness story, I am chronically ill. I have been, well, most of my life actually, but when I was 15 was kind of the time when it sort of started to show itself, and I was eventually diagnosed with something called ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. People with ME generally prefer it to be called ME because chronic fatigue syndrome doesn't really cover all of the symptoms that you get. Basically it was a diagnosis of elimination, so I had sort of various tests to test for other things and nothing was coming up, and so my paediatrician basically said, well, she said she didn't really know what was going on, and we had done a bit of research and my dad said, do you think it might be ME? And she just said, well, if you believe in that kind of thing. So that was my introduction to ME, which was not particularly great. Later down the line, a lot later down the line actually, 10 years later, I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, POTS, gastroparesis, various other things that have come with that. So do I still have ME? I don't know. My doctors are all a bit unsure about it basically, because ME is a diagnosis of elimination. As I said, you eliminate other possible causes of your symptoms and then you kind of come to the diagnosis of ME. That's what it's like at the moment anyway. And so I do now have a lot of other diagnoses that kind of explain my symptoms, but one of my main, my biggest symptoms is chronic fatigue, and compared to quite a lot of other people who have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, it doesn't seem to be in the same kind of league as what theirs is. Also basically mine seems to be more severe than a lot of other people with EDS, although EDS can be quite a big spectrum of symptoms, so it can be quite difficult to kind of tell, but I would still identify as having ME. I still relate to a lot of the symptoms and feel like they're not necessarily explained completely by my diagnoses, but yeah, it's a difficult one because there's no proper test for ME, so I can't say for certain one way or the other, and the same with my doctors, they're not sure. Basically I don't want to kind of go into too much detail because we'll be here forever, but once I was diagnosed with ME, the treatment, support, input from doctors was terrible. I was I think I was given physio, and they were very, like, they didn't understand ME at all. They tried to push you to do things that I couldn't do. They ended up making me worse and made me feel terrible because I couldn't kind of keep up with what they wanted me to do. I was referred to the mental health service because they seemed to think it was in my head and that some sort of mental health treatment would help. I did end up developing mental health problems, but I firmly believe that was mainly due to the fact that I wasn't being believed by my doctors. I wasn't getting any kind of proper like treatment or support for my condition, and so that's obviously going to have an effect on your mental health. So that did complicate things, but referring me like originally for psychiatric treatment didn't really help, because ME is a physical condition and seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist isn't going to cure you. But that's the way they saw things, and that's pretty much all I got. Over the years I have just had awful encounters with doctors and other medical professionals. As soon as they saw that I had ME on my medical records, their like way of treating me and approach to me would change. Most of them seemed to think that it was all in my head, that I was some sort of like hypochondriac. They would dismiss any of my symptoms that I went to them with. It was all put down to ME, despite the fact that they didn't seem to really believe in it. They were quite happy to put my symptoms down to ME. It just made it really, really difficult to get any kind of like physical help with any kind of physical symptoms, because it was all just dismissed, and you could just see, I would just hear them talking. Like if I ever went into hospital, I could hear doctors and nurses talking about me. They would say, you know, things like, oh, that one in that bed, whatever it was, they've got ME, so, you know, don't worry too much about them, because, you know, it's all in their head, it's all psychiatric. And it was just heartbreaking. And I do just want to come in here and say, when I'm kind of talking about them saying it's in my head and it's psychiatric, I'm in no way dismissing mental illness. I have had my fair share of mental illnesses, and they are just as important as physical illnesses. The main kind of thing that I'm trying to get across here is that ME is a physical illness, but quite often it's treated as a mental illness, so you're not given the correct support that you need. And a lot of medical professionals have quite outdated kind of thoughts and beliefs about mental illnesses. So, you know, even if it was a mental illness, you're still not getting particularly good treatment, because certainly, you know, with my ME and then my mental illnesses as well, I have just faced so much stigma, gaslighting from professionals about my symptoms and my conditions, and yeah, it's just been hellish over the last however many years that I've been ill. So because of this, you could probably appreciate that people with ME have been waiting for years for the NICE guidance to be changed, to make it better, basically, to make it more understanding of ME, to recognise it as a physical condition, and to get rid of really horrible treatments and things that they're kind of putting out there as cures. Things like graded exercise therapy and CBT have been routinely offered as treatments and cures for ME, and people with ME have been campaigning for years, along with charities and other campaigners, to get these things taken away, and so that doctors don't continue to try and prescribe them for their patients. I know so many people who have been made more unwell with these kind of treatments, and some people have unfortunately lost their lives as well. But just over the years, it has just been a continual fight, because very few doctors have listened and have believed that what people with ME are saying is actually true. And so those harmful treatments have been continued to be offered and often forced on people. And yeah, hopefully things are starting to change a little bit, because this new draft guidance from NICE has finally come out. So before I go into talking about the guidance, I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that a friend brought to my attention quite recently. She posted on her personal Facebook a bit of paper basically that she was given back in 2005 when she became ill with ME, and basically it was guidance and supposed treatment that was given to her that she was meant to follow in order to try and get better from ME. And I read through it and was absolutely horrified, and I don't know why I was horrified, because it's the treatment and stuff that I came up against. I think maybe I had blocked out just how bad it was, but I just wanted to kind of break down the guidance that she'd been sent. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm just going to pick out some of the worst parts and just explain why they were so damaging and harmful to people with ME. So the heading says your graded exercise program. The first bit that I wanted to just quote was this one, and it says, prioritise graded aerobic exercise into your day, postpone and delegate other demands as much as possible. For recovery, you need to be focused and single-minded on your exercise program. Recovery depends on what you do. You have the choice to exercise. I mean, this is just so wrong. You know, firstly, telling somebody to prioritise this graded exercise program over everything else in their life is just, it's unattainable for most people. You know, you can't just drop everything in your life and focus just on a graded exercise program. People have commitments, people have, you know, things that they need to be doing. They need to do food shopping, they need to look after a family, they might have work or study if they're able to do those kinds of things, and they might want to do nice stuff as well. That's, you know, they might want to watch something on the TV, they might want to read a book. It obviously depends completely on how severe somebody's ME is, but just expecting somebody to drop their whole life and just focus on an exercise program is just crazy. Like, who can do that, really? So that bit was rubbish. I thought that was terrible. And then it says about recovery depends on what you do. You have the choice to exercise. As if people have the choice as to whether they're well enough to exercise. It just baffles me. Like, you know, for people that received this kind of guidance to be made to feel like it was their choice about whether they got better or not is just, it's so harmful. And no wonder so many people with ME don't trust medical professionals anymore, because we got guidance like this that made us feel like we weren't trying hard enough, that we weren't doing the right stuff, and that it was our fault that we were ill. Like, you just wouldn't say that to people with a physical illness, and I just can't believe that this happened and that it's still happening, like, in 2020. It's just so wrong. So another bit that just made me, I don't even know, says saving your energy as much as possible for your graded exercise will stimulate the production of powerhouses and increase stamina. Like, what the hell does that mean? What is a powerhouse? I just think they have come up with some like random concept that has absolutely no backing in like science or anything like that. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't even, like, you know, if somebody gave this to me, I would have no idea what they meant by stimulating the production of powerhouses. It is not a scientific term. It's nothing to do, it's got no like medical backing or anything. It's just another thing that makes you feel rubbish about the way that you're managing your condition. You know, saving as much of your energy as possible for your graded exercise is just not possible, and these kind of things should not be being given to people with ME. So the next bit is about sleeping, which the amount of advice you get about sleeping when you've got ME is just crazy, and it all makes you feel rubbish. So this one says, at a time you are most vulnerable to sleeping in the day, save an activity. This will rouse you and help you to avoid sleeping in the daytime. Like, do these people, well, surely, yeah, it's very obvious that these people have absolutely no idea about ME, because for me, when I'm tired and I need to sleep, saving an activity is not going to help. You know, I have run out of energy. I can't then think, oh, let's do that activity that I didn't do earlier. That'll keep me awake. Because either one, it's just going to make me worse by trying to push through, and I'll then end up worse, you know, after that, and I'll be ill for longer. Or I just won't be able to do it and I will need to rest because that's what my body's telling me. And so I'm now going to feel guilty because I haven't been able to do that activity that I saved for doing it now. It just baffles me that they think that saving an activity is going to stop you from feeling sleepy. It's so important to rest when you've got ME and to try and pace yourself. And I don't know, for me, and I know a lot of other people think like this, if your body is telling you that you need sleep and you need to rest, then that's what you have to do. For me, I just can't push past needing to sleep. It's like my body has just been drained of all the energy, and I need to rest. I need to sleep, and people with ME should not be being told to push through if they're needing to rest, because it's just going to make them worse. So another bit, this is getting towards the end now of this one, it says, focus on your achievements now. Symptoms and limitations are temporary. Now, I understand that they are probably trying to reassure people that they're going to get better, but actually I think it's really important that if you're dealing with somebody who has been diagnosed with ME, that you're realistic with them. And actually a lot of people with ME don't get better. Their symptoms and limitations aren't temporary. You know, yes, it might fluctuate. They may have better days, they may have worse days, but a large majority of people with ME, you know, have to manage those symptoms and limitations long term. So telling somebody that their symptoms and limitations are temporary, for me, it's just cruel, because you're setting them up, you know, for expectations that won't necessarily happen. I think it's much better to be honest with somebody, and so that somebody can start to accept the way that their body is and the way that things might be, than giving them these false hopes that things are just going to get better overnight. And then this bit right at the end is in bold, and it's the bit that annoyed me most. It says, there is no disease. You have the right to full health. This is a good news diagnosis. Go for 100% recovery. I mean, could you get any more patronising? This, I just cannot, I cannot believe that this is on here, but this is something that I faced on a regular basis, being told that it was good news because they couldn't find anything wrong with me. So there was no disease, there was nothing wrong with me, so it was good. No, it wasn't good. Just because you can't find something wrong with me doesn't mean I'm not ill. And, you know, you just have to look at somebody with ME to realise that they are suffering, they are really severely unwell. Telling them that that's good news, it's insulting. How can you tell somebody who is bedbound, who can't get out of their bed, who can't eat, who can't drink, who's struggling to breathe, who's in horrendous amounts of pain, who can't leave the house, how can you tell them that that is a good news diagnosis and that there's no disease? Because it's just cruel. And I think I just can't believe people were allowed to be told these things, are allowed to be told these things. It's just wrong, and it should not be happening. People with ME need to be recognised. They need to feel that medical professionals believe that what they have is real. So, as I hope you can see just from that little kind of summary of those guidelines that my friend was given and that many other people are given, it is not sustainable and it's not suitable for people with ME to be given treatment like that. And this is why we are so passionate about changing the guidelines and raising awareness and raising, you know, money for research and things like that. So this is why I was so interested when the new guidance came out, because, you know, I want to see what is in there. Are they still going to be promoting these harmful treatments, these harmful beliefs, or have things changed? I haven't been able to read the guidance. It's like 70 plus pages and there's a lot of information there. And yeah, it's very, very difficult to read it. But I've managed to read some summaries that charities have done. I have kind of skimmed through the guidance and tried to pick bits out, but it only came out on Thursday. I'm filming this on Saturday, so I haven't had a chance to like read the whole thing yet. But as I said, charities and various different campaigners have really tried to like break it down, and I'm going to actually link some of those below, so that if you want to kind of read the broken down guidance, you can look at those, because they've been really helpful for a lot of people who kind of don't have energy to be able to read through 70+ pages. So yeah, I have been able to pick out some of the important bits from the guidance, so I thought I'd just go through some of those points now and talk about why they are good or why they're not so good, and hopefully just kind of give you a little brief overview of what the guidance is all about. So I've got a few quotes from the guidance, and the first one is: do not offer people with ME, CFS any therapy based on physical activity or exercise as a treatment or cure for ME/CFS, or any program based on fixed incremental increases in physical activity or exercise, for example, graded exercise therapy. So obviously this sounds fantastic. It's, you know, they're taking out that graded exercise therapy should be used as a cure or a treatment for ME, which is fantastic. You know, graded exercise therapy has, as I've said, been an awful thing to offer people with ME over the years. Very few people have found it to be helpful. I do just want to say that everybody with ME is going to be different, so what works for one person may be harmful to another. So yes, some people may have found graded exercise therapy helpful, but a lot of people found it harmful, and I think it's really good that this guidance is saying that it should not be offered as a cure or a treatment for I'm getting confused now, for ME, because of the harmful effects it's had on so many people. So the next one says: only offer cognitive behavioural therapy, CBT, to people with ME/CFS who would like to use it to support them in managing their symptoms of ME/CFS and to reduce the psychological distress associated with having a chronic illness. Do not offer CBT as a treatment or cure for ME. And again, this is brilliant. So many people like myself were referred for CBT to try and treat or cure our ME, and because ME is a physical condition, trying to treat it with CBT is not going to help. I mean, they have said, people that they can still offer CBT if people want to use it to support them, and this is quite common, I think, with a lot of physical illnesses, that they can offer some sort of psychological support to help you cope with having a chronic illness, but they're very specific about the fact that it should not be offered as a treatment or a cure for ME, and I think that's really important, because for so long that has been happening and it's just not helpful. It's not going to treat or cure your ME, and so it should not be offered as being a treatment or a cure. So I was really pleased to see both that and also the one about graded exercise therapy being taken out in this guidance. Another point in the guidance says that doctors should recognise that people with ME may have experienced prejudice and disbelief and feel stigmatised by people who do not understand their illness. And I think this is such an important point to include in this guidance, because for years people with ME have experienced prejudice, have experienced doctors who do not believe that they are ill, and so this has had a long-term effect on people with ME. This is why we struggle to trust medical professionals. We struggle to have any kind of working relationship with medical professionals, because there is so much stigma around ME, and it's really difficult to go to a medical professional when they know you have ME and they dismiss it. They dismiss any symptoms that you come with. And so I just think it's so important that this point is in here, because doctors need to recognise how the past has affected people with ME, and that they are going to have to do a lot of work to build up trust and to build up a better relationship with ME patients, because there's been a lot of history and it's been very, very negative. And so I would hope that from this guidance doctors would understand that it's going to take a while for us to trust them again. So I've then just got a few points that I've kind of made through reading people's summaries of the guidance and through my own kind of skimming through it. So it's really good that this guidance actually reinforces the legitimacy of this biomedical disease. It is really, really important that any doctors reading this guidance understand that ME is a biomedical condition, it is physical, and hopefully this guidance will kind of reinforce that and help doctors to understand that that is what they should be looking at, not treating it as a psychological condition. It also acknowledges that there's no one-size-fits-all approach for ME, so an intervention that might benefit one person could actually cause harm to another person. So it's important that that's in this guidance, because it helps doctors to realise that it's a complex condition. You know, what they may have one patient that did okay with, I don't know, some sort of physiotherapy, but that's not necessarily going to help somebody else, and it could potentially harm them. So I think it's really important that medical professionals understand that there is no one size fits all, and that it's got to be very tailored to each individual person. The guidance also reduces the amount of time that a person needs to have symptoms before they can get a diagnosis. So it used to be that you had to have symptoms for 4 months before you could be diagnosed with ME. That has now been changed, and it is down to 3 months now that you have to have symptoms. 3 months is obviously still a long time to have symptoms without having any diagnosis, but it's good, I think, that it's been brought down a bit, because 4 months, you know, it's a whole extra month, and when you've got symptoms and you're not getting a diagnosis and you don't understand what's wrong with you, it has quite a big effect on your mental health. And so I think it's really good that that time limit has been brought down a bit, and I think actually it does say that a doctor can say that they suspect you have ME before that 3 month limit. So even if you haven't hit the 3 months yet, you may still be able to get kind of like a preliminary diagnosis of, this is what we think you've got, but we need to wait for 3 months to see if you've kind of still got these symptoms. So I think that's really good, because having a diagnosis and an understanding of what's causing your symptoms is so important to people. The guidance also recognises the important need for training and education for health professionals. Looking through the guidance, I did kind of look at it and think, okay, well, you know, this is all very well, but there are so many health professionals out there who subscribe to the old beliefs of ME. So how is this going to work? And the guidance does actually recognise that there is going to be a need for training to, you know, retrain how medical professionals look at ME. So I think that's important. I just hope that it actually happens, and that doctors and other medical professionals will change their beliefs, because a lot of these beliefs are going to be very entrenched and have been, you know, going around for so many years. So I really, really hope that the majority of doctors will listen and will, you know, participate in any training that's offered and update their knowledge on ME. It also acknowledges the needs of people with severe ME and their carers. Severe ME is obviously very, very, well, I say very, very different to moderate and mild ME. You know, there are similarities, but somebody with severe ME is obviously going to be a lot more severely affected and are going to have very different needs, and their carers are going to have different needs. And I think it's really, really good that this guidance recognises that, because people with severe ME are often forgotten, and, you know, they are the ones that need the most help in a way. I mean, we all need help, but when someone is severely affected, they need help, and they yeah, they tend to get forgotten because they're behind closed doors. They can't get to medical appointments. And so there is a lot of guidance, a lot of sort of advice in this guidance about people with severe ME and recognising their needs and how they need to be treated. And I think this is incredibly important. It also states that patients should be treated with respect, dignity and empathy, which is kind of sad that that is even in there, because surely that is something that any medical professional should be doing with any patient. But in practice, I know that that hasn't happened for a lot of ME patients, including myself. And so putting that in the guidance and making sure that medical professionals realise that they need to be treating their patients with these things is obviously really, really important. And then I was also really happy to see that the guidance included information on making medical care accessible. So for example, having home visits for the severely affected, ways that you can make going into hospital more accessible for people with ME. I thought it was really, really good that that was in there. And also I thought it was good that there was a part that promoted the use of things like aids and adaptations, things like social care, and also giving patients information about benefits. I know when I was first diagnosed and I started using a wheelchair, my paediatrician was really not happy with me. She said people with ME should not be using a wheelchair, you shouldn't be using aids and adaptations. She was very, very against it, and it made me feel really bad because I felt like I needed it to help me manage my life, to help me give me, you know, some independence, to help save energy. But my doctors weren't supporting me with it, and it was I felt very conflicted and unsupported. So I think it's really important that that is in the guidance and that doctors realise that aids and adaptations can be a really positive thing for people with ME. And also, you know, things like referring people to social care, referring people to the right benefits, you know, places to get the right benefits. It's just important to give people with ME this information and to help them understand that they are entitled to it, that they, you know, should be able to access it. And it just validates the condition a bit, because up until now it has just been incredibly difficult to get any kind of support. So although there is a lot of positive stuff in these guidelines, they're definitely not perfect. And I just wanted to point out a few things that myself and other people have noticed about perhaps what needs to be changed, what kind of isn't in line with what people with ME would like. The first thing is that it recommends that once someone is diagnosed, they should be directed to a specialist team experienced in the management of ME to confirm the diagnosis and develop a personalised management plan. Now that sounds great. However, there aren't many specialist teams for people with ME in the UK, and the ones that there are, I would say, debatable. Some of them are run by psychologists, eating disorder specialists. There's very few specialist teams who actually take ME seriously as a physical condition and offer the appropriate treatment. So it's all very well saying that somebody should be directed to a specialist team, but at the moment I don't think that there are enough of these specialist teams, and the ones that there are, I don't feel are fit for purpose. So people are going to need retraining, we're going to need more resources for specialist teams that actually deliver the care that people with ME need. And I think perhaps that needs to just be like put in the guidance so that it's actually achieved. There's also still no real treatment or cure for ME. So what is this management plan going to look like? You know, they're talking about things like energy management, symptom management, managing flares and relapses, and support for daily living, which is all very well, but you know, we need more research into what ME actually is so that we can come up with better treatments for people, because at the moment all you can do is try and manage your symptoms. And to me that isn't really good enough. There's no medication, there's no real treatment that you can do that is definitely going to make you feel better. So I just think that needs to be recognised a bit more in these guidelines as well. and it needs to be recognised that more research is needed into the biomedical side of ME. And then the other issue that I have got with the guidelines is that although graded exercise therapy has been removed, it then goes on to say that doctors should only consider a physical activity programme for people with ME who are ready to progress their physical activity beyond their current activities of daily living, or would like to incorporate physical activities into the management of their ME. It states that any programme should use flexible increments for people who want to focus on improving their physical abilities while remaining within their energy envelope. To me, this doesn't seem that dissimilar to graded exercise therapy. They're talking about using flexible increments, which is graded, for people wanting to improve their physical abilities, so exercise. It concerns me a lot actually that this is in here, because I do not want doctors interpreting this as, okay, that's basically just graded exercise therapy, so we can continue to offer that, because it's just so harmful. And I just would like to see that bit of the guidance changed, because I just think it needs to be completely clear that graded exercise therapy of any type should not be a suitable treatment for ME. And yeah, it's basically something that I read that somebody else had said, is that NICE have left people with ME in a bit of a no-win situation. Basically, there's no choice over potential treatments. So if you are offered a treatment by your doctor, which is likely to be some sort of physical type of exercise, that's basically all your two choices are physical exercise or CBT to help manage your symptoms, and that's about it. So to me, there hasn't been a huge amount of actual progress in what people with ME can actually be offered, and I think that really needs to be looked at a bit more, because it's not a good place to leave somebody with ME in. It's basically, you can either have those treatments or you can just get on with it on your own, and that doesn't, to me, seem like a particularly good choice. It also places the kind of management of the person's health on them, which isn't a completely bad thing. I think it's really important for things to be patient-led and for patients to have, autonomy over their treatment and, their life, because it's their health. However, I do worry that this could be used in a way that is harmful to people with ME. So, I'm worried that it might be that doctors will say, well, it's up to you what you want to do. You're the person that's kind of taking the lead with management. This is what we can offer you, physiotherapy or CBT to cope with your, chronic illness. It's up to you whether you want to take it. If you don't take it, then that's your choice, but we can't offer you anything else. And I do just worry that people with ME will miss out on any kind of support, because they won't necessarily want to take the CBT or the physiotherapy route, and if they don't take those, what else is there? So I know that was a lot of information, and I hope it hasn't been kind of too dry, but I just wanted to try and get it across in the best way that I could. But I just wanted to move on now to talking about what you and I can do with what we've got so far. I've got stuff written down here, so when I'm looking down, that's why. Basically, it is really important that the views of people with ME, so you and me, continue to shape this consultation, and it's really important that the guidance, like when it finally comes out, has a patient-led approach to diagnosis and management, because we are the ones that have the condition. We generally know what's best for us, and it's important that our views are heard. So to help this happen, certain charities and campaigners are, as I said, have been summarising the key points to kind of help people with ME who might not be able to read the whole guidance, so that they can still get the good like get a good understanding of it and can comment on it. As I said, I will link them down below so that you can go and check them out kind of at your own pace and read their summaries so that you can start to get an idea of like the whole guidance. So we've got 6 weeks to respond. The consultation ends on Tuesday the 22nd of December, and then the new guidance is expected to come out in April 2021. You can make individual comments, so you can send your comments directly to NICE. As I said, I will put everything in the description bar so that you can kind of find the links to go to the places you need to go to. However, I think it is recommended that you make a comment through a stakeholder. So various sort of charities are stakeholders, and a few of them are doing surveys and getting people's opinions so that they can then put together a response to send to NICE. I feel like perhaps they will be taken more seriously than individual comments, but if you want to make an individual comment, there's absolutely nothing stopping you. You can still do that, but it might be worth doing both just to make sure that your comment is listened to and taken forward. So yeah, all of the stakeholders I'll pop down below, the surveys, etc., so that you can go and do those if that's what you'd like to do. And yeah, I just think it's really important that our voices are heard and that treatment and the way ME is approached is, you know, in line with what people with ME actually want and what the charities with ME think that should be happening. So do please make your voices heard. I think it's so important, and hopefully, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, we can start to bring about some change in the way people with ME are treated, because it is about time, isn't it? It's been years and years of suffering, of gaslighting, of being treated terribly, and we need to be making a change, and NICE need to be making a change. You know, this is the first step, but there is such a long way to go, and the only way that's going to happen is if we keep making sure that we are listened to. We've got some great charities, some great campaigners who are putting so much work in to get us listened to, and I just want to thank them for doing that, because it is so important. So do make your voice heard, and hopefully things might start to change. I really hope you have found this video useful in just summarising why a change in the guidance is so important, and a little bit about what these draft guidance actually says, the kind of pros and cons. If you have found it helpful and you'd like to see more videos from me, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. Also hit the notification bell, that means you'll get notified every time I upload a video so you don't miss anything. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think of the draft guidance. Have you been able to read it all, or have you just kind of done what I've done? Are there bits that stand out for you that look positive or negative? Let me know what you think, and yeah, anything that I've missed basically. I think it's really important that we kind of keep talking about this. Also let me know if there's any videos you'd like to see me do, whether it is about sort of physical or mental health or something completely different. I'm also doing my Christmas planning, so if there's any Christmassy videos you'd like to see, please let me know. It's really good to hear the things that you'd like to see, because it means I can make what you want to see. Also come and follow me on social media. My links are in the description below, but I'll pop my Instagram and Twitter up here. Those are the two places that I'm mainly on, so please do come over and say hello. It would be lovely to talk to you, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye!